Alright guys, such coming again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Nadeshot and Scump are giving their in-depth opinions on Black Ops 7 so far, but also Nadeshot calling out the way that the CDL has been run over the last few years compared to his playing days. Yes, BO7 might be better for competitive than some of these most recent titles, but Nadeshot still doesn't believe the state of the Call of Duty League is what it should be when it comes to competitive play. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Wanted to start here really, just comparing a little bit of this. I put out a clip the other day on the Breaking Point channel on the Breaking Point Twitter. It was just a clip of watching Scump with the M8 in BO2, BO3 and BO7. And there were lots of comments saying that, damn, you know, all these years later, and the game actually looks worse, right? Now, this is BO2 at the bottom here. This, of course, is the map Cove. This is a DLC map with the DSR. And here we are, of course, fast forward. I mean, what did BO2 come out? 2012. So fast forward 13 years to Black Ops 7. Does the game graphically look any better than it did? Now, I'm not saying that, you know, the games nowadays can even look much better, but I do take the point that visually the COD games from, you know, a decade ago look better, I think, than most of the games that have come up for the last few years. I think Black Ops 7 is certainly close. I do think that vibrance is quite an important thing. At least the maps on this game have some colour. This was that clip I was mentioning, right? So this is Scump on BO2 Cove with the M8, what that game looked like back then. The next clip is then with the M8 in Black Ops 3, which again, you know, very vibrant, really colourful game. BO4 was also a great looking Call of Duty as well. And then fast forward to BO7, you know, I don't think BO7 is necessarily worse, but it's not necessarily better, but also that doesn't massively matter to me, really. As long as the game looks fine, that's, you know, it's got to look good, but, you know, does BO7 look better looking at this gameplay than some of the other games? Not necessarily, but does it look good enough? Like, is it better than some of the, is it better than Vanguard, for example? Like, you know, the answer to that question is yes. Lots of talk over the last few days about skill-based matchmaking. We know that they've got the open mosh pit, the open playlist, which do not have skill-based matchmaking to anywhere near the same extent. The question has been, is that actually going to be a full feature in the full release? Or is this just an intention to say, well, okay, Battlefield's coming out, so we're going to try what we can to keep the COD player base engaged? But they took open search and destroy and they made it just search and destroy. So Matt Scront says, we're trying to give players what they want as much as we can, limit how many playlists we have active to focus population and data, get solid testing data and feedback on matchmaking. So his point, I think, is that they're playing around with it being on or off so they can get the data. And I do wonder what the data will look like, because we believe that the reason why skill-based matchmaking has been a thing to such an extent, which has made public match COD way less enjoyable, like so much less enjoyable over the last few years, is because Activision believe, and they presumably have the data to support it, that people play longer when there is SBMM. Maybe Treyarch can find some data in there somewhere that potentially proves the opposite, but then again, right, in these betas, when the game hasn't even come out yet, usually it's slightly more hardcore players that play this anyway. So there were lots of replies, let's say, to Matt Scront on this tweet, but pretty interesting to see. There's also this, here we are on Forge, just I saw this from something in October, put this on the Reddit. So this head glitch here, you can jump into this window by hitting a wall bounce and then jumping up, but actually, if you jump in the right way, you can actually head glitch this little wall. Now, it does appear that it looks like a bit of a pixel walk, right? So whether this is an unintended line of sight, as Clayster might say, that's a good question, but something to play around with if you guys haven't looked at that too much yet. There's also this, I mean, I thought this is pretty funny, really, that even the score streaks can hit you with the wall bouncing in this game. We kind of used to see this back in the day, right, the RCXD or the HCXD as it was back in Black Ops 3, but yeah, the fact that this thing can hit the wall bounce is pretty remarkable as well. So loads of new things we're discovering pretty much every single day. But lots of talk from Scump and from Nadeshot and from others on the state of Black Ops 7 so far. Scump and Nade very happy with the game, and I understand that perspective. Of course, people are going to say whitelisted accounts, they're going to say paid by COD, shills, whatever, it is what it is. But Scump talks a little bit about it and describes how he's pretty happy with where this game is so far, and Nadeshot absolutely agrees, certainly when it comes to previous betas. Nadeshot's opinion is that people have got so used to hating on COD over the last few years that when there's actually a good COD, which he believes this is here, then, you know, people aren't maybe celebrating as much as they should be. Like, the reality is, the reason why people are happy about this COD is because to some degree it's reversed many of the frustrating things that have gone wrong in COD over the last decade. Probably loads of those decisions shouldn't even have been made in the first place, and we could have been in a much better spot for the last probably near enough 10 years at this point. But at least since Black Ops 4, really, when things, I think, took a serious turn for the worse, unfortunately coinciding with exactly when the CDL launched. But Scump talks about what made him retire, why he came to that decision, the state of Black Ops 7 in general, but also a couple of things from Nadeshot here on the way this game is, but also the way that his competitive life was, his career, compared to what the players are like today.
He retired because the game sucks and got fined for criticizing the game. That is not the only reason why I retired. Yes, the game was awful, probably the worst Call of Duty we've ever had, MW2 recent version, but that's not the only reason why I retired. I was switching roles, right? I was switching roles. The game was bad, and I was just getting kind of fed up, you know, with competing. And that probably does have a big part to do with the games, which it does. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It does have a big part to do with the games. But if your head's not in it, right? And we had Bruce on the bench. I was switching roles. Bruce just made sense. Bring him back in. I don't got to switch roles. I go do the watch part. You know what I'm saying? It just made sense in a lot of different facets. Is COD back? That's a good question, Craig. Chat, is COD back? What do we think? Is COD back? Dude, people are like being pretty critical of the beta. There's only 3 maps in it, right? There's only 3 maps. We don't have all the streaks. So far, I think the common consensus right now from a lot of people is that the maps are already better. What we've seen, there is not a single map that we've played so far that is worse than the Black Ops 6 maps. Not a single one. Every single map we've played is better than all the other BO6 maps. Already. We're gonna have to see how they play competitively, but I think they're already better. The maps are great, but I want more than 3. We all want more than 3, Wyatt. But they're not going to blow their whole load a month before the game even drops. That wouldn't even make sense. They're not going to do that. It's a beta.
What about yourself? Are you liking it?
Yeah, you really can't avoid the hate. I think that's actually, it's weird. It's one of the most frustrating parts of this beta is that I think if you don't like this Call of Duty, you just aren't a fan of Call of Duty anymore.
Yeah, well, here's the thing,
you
right?
can't
Is
say
like,
that because
but I also think a lot of people are like so attached to nostalgia, right? Like people that are like older, like if this game might not be made for, like, it's just different times, right? Like different times, different gods. Like the game's evolved. Like it's evolved a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. Like if we went back to like some of those older school games, like it might be kind of boring to some people. Like it might be too slow.
You ever missed like competing?
Sometimes.
Like when you retired and you went full like content creation, did you ever miss that competitive feeling, the scrims, the VOD review?
We weren't reviewing VODs, bro. I do. I did for sure. Like after I moved to LA and quit, especially when a different title would come out, like Black Ops 3, I think I would have loved to play competitively. Let's go back to Control. I'll land on the backside with you guys. If I could have played Black Ops 3, I think I would have enjoyed that a lot. I'm really glad I missed out on Infinite Warfare, though, candidly. But, yeah, the scrims were kind of tough, though, man, because you sit there, you practice 8 hours a day, and if you show up to the event, and we were lucky because there were a lot of events back then, people don't play it nearly as much on LAN as they used to. So it didn't feel as hopeless, because you could show up to the LAN right now after practicing for a month and a half, lose 2 matches, and then you're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
So that I do miss.
Nadeshot also got into a bit of drama over this. So Nade comes out and says, at every CDL player in the league, GA dynamic aim assist. Now, he did eventually delete this tweet, which is why this is a screenshot, because this does, you know, misunderstand to a certain extent what dynamic aim assist is. We'll get into that in a second. But he actually just adds all the players and is like, all right, we've got to get rid of this, because the theory goes that over the last few years, aim assist has become stronger. It does it more for you than it used to. This game looks quite a lot like Infinite Warfare. If you, in my opinion, if you go back and play Infinite Warfare, that game was difficult to shoot in. With the K-bar, even with the NV4, there was not much aim assist. You had players whiffing shots left, right, rhubarb, right across the bridge on retaliation, whatever the case was. Nowadays, people are just mapping everyone with a Dravec, no questions asked, right? And I don't think that's how it should be. I also believe that they should bring back a cutoff for aim assist on certain weapons. I always say this, but back in Black Ops 2, the SMGs had a cutoff in terms of range for any aim assist of about 38 meters, which doesn't mean much, like the meters number doesn't mean much, but it was something like that. The ARs, for example, would double that range, which meant that if I was top art on Raid and I was trying to chow the guy who was top laundry, that was a distance of more than 38 meters. So if I wanted to gun him with my MSMC against his M8, he would get aim assist and I would get nothing. So I could gun him if I was unbelievable, right? Like if I was just that guy, then I could do it. And even in Black Ops 3, aim assist did exist on a longer range, but it felt far weaker at range. To gun someone cross-map with a VMP, like, that took some serious talent. Nowadays, it just doesn't really. So the strength of aim assist has definitely increased over time. I think it has been to the detriment of the competitiveness of the scene. And Nadeshot says, get rid of this dynamic aim assist thing. You've got a force linear on every player. Guarantee we'll see more insane plays and a slightly bigger skill gap. Don't knee-jerk reaction from this. Actually think about it. Competition would be so much better. So Nade is pretty much saying, let's just tone down how good the aim assist is, and that would make the game play better. And the pros it would be difficult for the pros to disagree on some level because they always talk about skill gap, skill gap, skill gap. So the pros might be forced to argue that, well, yeah, if we do tone it down to a degree, then maybe that makes things better. Of course, some would argue just turn it off entirely and good luck, right? Good luck with that. I don't think that would be a game that we'd especially want to watch, and also you want to make sure the pros are kind of playing where the casuals are playing as well. What Nadeshot misunderstands here, though, is that there isn't really a way to do this. The dynamic is an aim response curve. Exclusive Ace explains it in the replies and says, dynamic aim assist, it's a response curve that doesn't actually change your aim assist. It just changes the way that the sensitivity curve works with the aim assist that you have. It might make it more comfortable to aim for many, but it does so minimizing input lag, lowering your dead zones, and separating separate ADS sensitivity adjustments. I get that aim assist is strong, but it seems strange to add an artificial handicap to a totally separate setting to counteract that. And then Nadeshot says, candidly, brother, I'm slow, and then he deleted it. Now, it is a little bit confusing, this, but I think, as Exclusive Ace says, all right, whatever you think about dynamic, linear, whatever you guys like to play on, the point could be valid that maybe we could have a intermediary between aim assist settings, the very strong one that it seems that we have today, although maybe slightly weaker in this game than it has been a little bit before. But as he says, maybe some sort of aim assist strength slider that could be capped in competitive rule sets to, because if you go back and watch or play Black Ops 2, for example, like that game was just not easy to shoot in. There was a big skill gap at the top level. We don't really have that nowadays. So intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. The other thing, of course, that I mainly wanted to mention here was Nadeshot's perspective, not just on BO7, but all the events. Like, Nadeshot retired shortly into Advanced Warfare, but that year, he'd already won 3 events, I think, before they even played the World Championship, and the World Championship that year was in March, right? So think about that in context. Maybe it was the start of April, but the point still applies that the Advanced Warfare season had about 14 events, and the other events that happened in previous seasons were pretty similar in number as well. Maybe not quite to that extent, but nowadays we have, 6, right? 5, 6 if we're lucky, even across the Esports World Cup as well. And as Nade says, we're spending, his players nowadays on his organisation are spending absolutely months, certainly weeks, grinding online COD, not really achieving anything, to go up to the LAN, lose a couple of games and be straight out of there, because all of our online matches are effectively the group play that used to happen back in the day. If you turned up to a LAN event before, you would start in groups as a pro team. That meant you would play bare minimum 3 games in the group. And yeah, if you got knocked out last place, but even then you'd still go down to the bracket. So bare minimum, you used to turn up to these LAN events and play 4 matches, even if you lost all of them, which at least feels like you got a better, let's say, return on all your effort in the previous weeks. So some things for the CDL to think about. Are there any changes actually going to be made? I'm not so convinced, but very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.